excited to welcome my next and last guest in, Kyle Hentz. Welcome to the studio.
Well, thank you for having me.
I appreciate your coming in because you reached out today to a number of folks here in the state. Again, your continued concerns with fluoride in the drinking water, Newport in particular. But there's a particular angle to this. The EPA has just said that groups can't sue over fluoride in drinking water. Talk with us about your concerns and why bringing it to the public's attention again here today.
Okay, this began a couple of years ago. I made a presentation before the City Council in Newport, and it was triggered by a Lancet, it's a medical journal, report that referred to fluoride as a neurotoxin, toxic to your brain. And this is being added to the water all over the country and has been for some time. Europe has ceased the practice, and recently I just came across Facebook a story, actually a video presentation about a decision by a judge to allow a lawsuit to go forward that's being led by the Fluoride Action Network, which is a national networking group that's been on this issue for many years. And so now they get to take this case against the EPA and make the case that in fact fluoride is toxic, especially to developing brains of our children, very vulnerable children in the womb. There's a study that just came out in Mexico that is finding that that fluoride is causing a lower IQ in those that are born to women who have been exposed to fluoride, high levels of fluoride.
And again, the rationale by municipalities in the country in general for the continuing use of fluoride, what is their rationale for it?
Well, the rationale is that it prevents cavities, and it is true that a topical application of fluoride will help prevent cavities. It's not insurance, but it does help prevent cavity. That's a topical presentation or application, but it's a very different thing to ingest that fluoride, a neurotoxin, into your body. And again, especially vulnerable are young people growing, developing brains, and so on. So yes, there is evidence that fluoride helps topically, which is what you used to get a fluoride treatment when you go into the dentist, but they're putting it in the water, so we're ingesting it. And children are getting, who weigh 50 pounds, 60 pounds, 70 pounds, are taking in the same amount as an adult. So we really don't know the full impact of this, but I'm very concerned. I think it's very serious.
Did I see a number that 2/3 of the United States approximately has fluoridated water? Why do some municipalities have it and some don't?
Well, because there's organizations like Mothers Against Fluoride. I think that's right. They're one of the litigants. They've joined the Fluoride Action Network in this lawsuit, and they organize and they read the journals, and then they take their case to their city council like I did, or they lobby state officials. And in some cases there's there's been a vote. For example, Portland had a big debate about this, Portland, Oregon. And this was a year or two ago, maybe two years ago, they voted against in adding fluoride to the water. And like I said when you first introduced me, Europe isn't even doing it at all. And we don't hear cases of increased cavities and dental problems across Europe, not at all. So why are we still doing it here in this country? And I'd like to get to the bottom of it. So I started this campaign basically to say, please, let's investigate this. Let's stop the practice or pause the practice and see what the state of the art is in terms of the research, analysis, and the research that people have done.
Do you think people are receptive to the research? I know you presented to Newport. Why do people question alternative research, in your opinion? Is it because it seems so outside the norm, or is it just a psychological aspect of people being resistant to change?
Well, it's been going on for so long. How could be wrong? Anything wrong with fluoridation? It's been going on forever, what is it, 40 or 50, 60 years. And interesting, a point that I'd like to make is that Edward Bernays, who was the father of modern day marketing, propaganda, he was hired by, I'm not sure who, but he led and organized the campaign to sell the American public on the addition of fluoride to our water. And you can't just get fluoride out of the water, folks, by putting in a carbon filter. It doesn't take out fluoride. You have to buy an expensive filter. So I say, if you want to reduce your cavities or make sure you're less likely to get cavities, then go and get a fluoride treatment at the dentist or use fluoridated toothpaste. You know, it's in a lot of toothpaste. That's adequate. We don't need to be drinking this stuff. And I think people think, oh, how could we be doing this? Well, what if I've been silent all this time, or well, I've been ignorant, and gosh, I don't want to admit that maybe I've overlooked this, and maybe we're really doing serious damage to young people. And I think there's just resistance. And in my case, I went before the city council, had 4 minutes to present this, and the then mayor organized a pre-buttal. So a retired Navy dentist spent her first 2 minutes just listing off her credentials, but she didn't respond to the Lancet medical journal saying this is a neurotoxin. She just spouted the government line, actually, which is it's the greatest public health triumph in modern history, and it could be one of the modern tragedies, not a triumph. Once we get to the bottom of this, that's my feeling.
Are there other like-minded individuals in Rhode Island? How big's the group of folks who are really calling for the removal of fluoride from the drinking water?
No, it's a tiny group. It's a tiny group. There's a few people that I found online. When I was trying to find allies and maybe a witness or someone who had more credentials than I do, because I'm just, someone who's been reading, and following the news and following the latest developments. But I think there's some dentists that are kind of on a list and have been involved or, in some fashion. But is there an organized effort right now? Not that I'm aware of. And so that was why I sort of brashly put out this email and sent it to members of the press and, people who are sitting in the offices of our senator or, my, members of the city council in Newport, which is my, hometown. So I'm just hoping that the press, and thank goodness for Go Local, and for you, Kate, that someone will pay attention and do the investigation that needs to be done. Here locally, okay, why are we doing it? Interview some of these officials, find out what the party line is, and then look at the evidence that's mounting that this is the wrong thing to do. And every day that it continues, I think we're hurting people.
And let's talk, here we are on the East Coast. You mentioned the example on the West Coast of Portland, Oregon, where there was a big public movement and they were able to overturn it. Why do you think, was it a groundswell, really grassroots movement out there? And are you looking to that as an example of how to affect change here in Rhode Island?
Exactly. I mean, that's it. There was and of course, you could say that maybe they're ahead of us out there or they more active, organized community, but we can do it here. We just need a few organizations and a handful of articles that bring attention to it, and maybe we can put together a real movement, a real campaign. It was nice that the city council allowed me to present, the case against fluoridation, and I was basically saying, let's just pause, stop the practice, because maybe we're doing serious wrong, and investigate. And because there hasn't been a reassessment in any formal way by our own environmental watchdogs in this state or by the federal authorities, and I don't understand the politics of it. I know that fluoride is a byproduct of steel making, for example, the weapons industry, and now it's in our water. I mean, I just don't understand it. But the alarm bells are going off, and there's more and more studies coming out. So we've got to stop it. We've got to look at it more closely.
And let's lastly talk about that legal angle about the EPA. Allowing lawsuits to move forward. I mean, is that going to be something that folks and activists are looking towards? If there's some movement there, could that really be the catalyst for increased change across the country?
I think so. I mean, that's the way this video was presented, that this lawsuit, because it's been allowed to move forward, could pave the way for the cessation of that practice. Like I said again, third time I'll say it again, Europe doesn't do it. So they have found just cause, and now thanks to these organizations who have been on the case for years, maybe even a decade, we may have a lawsuit where all this evidence can be brought forward, and laid on the table, and the EPA challenged, because their mandate is to protect the health of Americans. And if different studies around the planet are finding that this fluoride is a neurotoxin and it's impacting people's health and their IQ and other things, then they need to look at it and stop it. And maybe the lawsuit is the vehicle for doing that. And I think it's like, oh, there's a lawsuit? You mean, and there's real evidence being looked at? And, maybe people will take this seriously instead of just accepting status quo, which in this case is, again, doing a lot of harm.
Well, we'll continue to keep an eye on the issue, but again, as you're out there bringing it to folks, letting folks know that you're wanting to, again, have this fluoride removed from drinking water and want folks to know about, to basically educate themselves about the issue.
Yeah, take a look at it. And especially people in government that are, there are leaders, they need to look at this too.
Well, I appreciate your taking the time to come in, again, bringing this to the press attention today. I'm glad you were able to come down here to the Go Local studios. I'm sure we'll talk with you more in the coming weeks and months.
Well, I look forward to that.
Kyle Hentz, thank you so much for coming in. I'll let you go around the corner. Okay.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Kyle Hentz came in today, again, had a mass release. Now, this again pertains to a national lawsuit regarding the use of fluoride in drinking water, talking about examples of communities, states, and Europe that does not currently use fluoride in drinking water. Wanted to express his concerns about it here in Rhode Island, has brought it before the Newport City Council before. I'm sure we'll continue to fight the fight moving forward. Wanted to have him in here to provide his perspective. It was a very busy day here at the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center with Ava Gaudette at 3 o'clock with great Rhode Island companies and people really giving back to the community. And of course, 4 o'clock news and politics, no shortage. Jennifer Lawless down at American University, between Oprah saying she might consider a run for president. Again, that took a lot of national attention, but Sheriff Joe Arpaio in Arizona saying he will run for Senate. No, again, plenty of speculation inside the Beltway what that will look like for 2018. Had Dr. Doug Sherman from New England Tech. They just were given a top 20 ranking by U.S. News and World Report for their online programs. The only education institution in Rhode Island to get that ranking, one of only 2 in New England. Talk with him about those programs there. And then Keno Mullings about the Future is Geek, the Institute for Entrepreneurship and Leadership here in Providence. Going to be kicking off a big event on the 19th about their training programs for the underemployed and unemployed here to give them the critical skills needed for the tech fields. And Kyle Hentz talking about his concerns with fluoride in drinking water. We'll be back again at 3 o'clock tomorrow for The Taste with Rick Simone. I hear it's about it being National Soup Month. I'll be on at 4 o'clock. Don't be late. It's going to be a great show. We're going to kick off with Daryl West down at the Brookings Institute talking about his new book and more tomorrow on Go Local Live. So we appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate your feedback. We look forward to seeing you here in studio, but tune in to Go Local Prov in the meantime and wishing everyone a good Tuesday evening. I'm Go Local News Editor Kate Nagel. Go News Editor Kate Nagel. Go News Editor Kate Nagel. Go News Editor Kate Nagel.